an historic 100 days. Some would say prehistoric. It is difficult to give Trump's first 100 days a grade, but if I had to, I'd say it falls somewhere between F and U.
How weak and pathetic is a guy like that? The Tonight Show, which is dying. They're all dying. Where's Johnny Carson? Bring back Johnny. It made you appreciate, right, Uncle Sam? It made you appreciate the greatness of Johnny Carson.
Donald Trump just went full volcano, and guess who lit the fuse? Jimmy Kimmel. One punchline and boom, Trump's ego practically filed a lawsuit for emotional damage. Was it the spray tan joke, the stable genius jab, or did Kimmel accidentally reveal Trump's secret shampoo brand? Either way, the meltdown was so loud even Truth Social took a coffee break. Stick around because this roast got hotter than Trump's search history at 3 a.m. You seriously won't see this one coming. If you're enjoying, please subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you think. It started like any other night on late-night television. But instead of just poking the usual fun, Jimmy Kimmel decided to light a full-blown comedy bonfire. And the kindling, Donald J. Trump, one monologue, one merciless roast, and suddenly Mar-a-Lago became ground zero for an emotional earthquake. This wasn't your typical soft shoe jab or a passing dig. No, this was precision comedy warfare. Kimmel, who's basically made a side career out of surgically dissecting Trump's ego with a smirk and a punchline, turned his latest monologue into a masterclass in public satire. And boy, did it land. You could almost hear the gold-plated furniture rattling as Trump spiraled into yet another theatrical meltdown, probably knocking over a framed magazine cover of himself on the way down. But let's rewind. This wasn't Kimmel's first comedic ambush. He's had Trump on his radar since the days when the former president thought bleach could cure a pandemic and Kofi was a foreign policy doctrine. The man has been mocked over everything from his Diet Coke obsession to his uncanny resemblance to a sentient tooth. Yet nothing seemed to strike a nerve quite like this time. This wasn't just a roast performed with a mic, a laugh track, and a crowd that had been waiting years to see Trump finally get carved up like a Mar-a-Lago buffet ham. So what did Kimmel say? Oh, just your average takedown of Trump's legal circus, fantasy poll numbers, and that unique ability to string sentences together like a malfunctioning chatbot. He even managed to roast Trump's latest rally, where the ex-president rambled so far off topic, he may have invented a new language. At one point, Kimmel accused Trump of being so desperate for attention, he'd gladly debate a Roomba if it meant getting airtime. And the scary part, that's not even far-fetched. Imagine Trump standing at a podium screaming, "I'm more powerful than this vacuum cleaner." While it quietly retreats under a couch in shame, Kimmel didn't just mock Trump's words, he dismantled the entire illusion. The tough guy persona gone. The political mastermind facade torched. The self-declared genius who knows more turned into a punchline about confusing airports with airspace and documents with dinner napkins. And what really burned? Kimmel did it all with that same calm, smirking delivery that makes Trump feel like he's being laughed at. Not with, because he absolutely is. There's something especially devastating about being mocked by a late-night host. And Trump knows it. It's not just that Kimmel is funny. It's that his jokes are true. They're the distilled version of everything Trump wants people to ignore. The lawsuits, the indictments, the bizarre press releases, the rallies that feel less like political events and more like group therapy for nostalgia addicts. Kimmel simply pulled the curtain back and said, "Here's your wizard screaming into a teleprompter, misspelling his enemies' names, and selling knockoff sneakers." And let's not forget Trump's reaction. Because of course there was a reaction. He didn't just shrug it off. He short-circuited like a MAGA hat in a microwave. Fake loser. And something about Kimmel's ratings, which ironically got a boost because of the segment. Nothing proves you've been obliterated quite like giving your destroyer more views. The best part, Trump still believes he's winning. In his mind, being talked about at all is a sign of dominance. He could fall down a flight of stairs and still declare victory for landing harder than anyone in history. But this camel roast wasn't just chatter. It was a cultural moment. A comedian held up a mirror and what stared back wasn't a leader or a legend. It was a man grasping for relevance, fuming in his golf pants, raging because laughter, especially loud, uncontrollable, derisive laughter is the one thing he can't spin, sue, or silence. Now imagine hearing all of this while lounging in a silk robe surrounded by framed magazine covers of yourself and nursing the eternal belief that you're America's greatest gift since sliced white bread. The ego took a hit, folks. He pulled out all the classics, accusing Kimmel of being irrelevant, low-rated, and jealous of his enormous, well, everything. In true Trump fashion, it was less rebuttal and more interpretive whining. Why did this particular roast trigger such an explosive reaction? It wasn't just the jokes, it was the subtext. Kimmel wasn't just laughing at Trump, he was laughing through him the bluster, the endless carnival act of self-promotion and finger-pointing. The punchlines weren't about policy or ideology. They were about character, or in Trump's case, the glaring lack thereof. Trump has never taken kindly to mockery. This is the man who once tried to silence an entire news network with the enthusiasm of a Bond villain. He considers comedy a personal attack, especially when it comes wrapped in punchy wit and inconvenient truths. And Kimmel didn't just land a few zingers, he ripped the entire illusion to shreds. Trump in flames. Of course, Trump wasn't going to let that slide. The man doesn't just hold grudges. He laminates them, frames them, and tweets about them. At 2 a.m., the meltdown arrived in 3 acts: online fury, rally rants, and a media blitz of wounded pride. He accused the media of conspiring with comedians, as if there's some secret Illuminati subgroup of stand-up comics sworn to ruin his legacy. He called Kimmel irrelevant, despite referencing him enough times to suggest he's the unofficial co-host of Trump's own grievance tour. It was a response so over-the-top you half expected him to challenge Kimmel to a boxing match during halftime at the Super Bowl. But behind all the tantrums was something more fragile. Kimmel hit a nerve Trump has spent years trying to armor up the creeping realization that the culture has moved on. Late night used to court Trump for ratings. I have the best words. It's less political discourse and more like watching a WWE character lose touch with the script. Meanwhile, Kimmel just kept doing what he does best. Smiling, cracking jokes, and casually dismantling a man who once claimed he alone could fix America. The beauty of it all, he doesn't need to scream. He doesn't need to rage. He just talks. And Trump implodes. Because at the end of the day, Trump doesn't fear opposition. He fears ridicule. He fears becoming a punchline. In his mind, being mocked means being diminished. And being diminished is the ultimate nightmare for a man who treats every appearance like an audition for Mount Rushmore. The irony, of course, is that Trump once thrived on this attention. He basked in being controversial, edgy, and unfiltered. But now, the spotlight he craved so badly is revealing more than he wanted. And what it's showing isn't flattering. That's what Kimmel delivered. Not just laughs, but exposure. A public unmasking disguised as entertainment. And Trump, ever the showman, couldn't help but give it more oxygen by reacting like a cartoon villain mid-breakdown. The funniest part, the more Trump explodes, the more material he gives Kimmel and every other late-night host. It's a feedback loop of ego, fury, and unintentional comedy. Gets roasted, reacts poorly, and then acts shocked that people find it hilarious. It's not just a roast, it's performance art. And Trump is the unwilling star of a never-ending tragic comedy. The best part, Kimmel never had to raise his voice. Just a few punchlines, a little eyebrow raise, and the occasional smirk were enough to make the most famously thin-skinned man in politics absolutely combust. Of course, Trump lost it because Jimmy didn't just roast him. He felt the man's ego and served it with a side of ratings receipts. Trump doesn't just like attention, he needs it like it's oxygen pumped into a golden ventilator. Before politics, late-night hosts loved having him on. They laughed at his weird charisma, let him promote books and buildings, and treated him like a quirky billionaire with a Miss Universe complex. Once he descended the golden escalator and started talking about Mexicans, Muslims, and alternative facts, that red carpet admiration morphed into open mockery, and he's never gotten over it. 'Cause here's the thing, Donald Trump still sees himself as the main character in a drama where every camera should be on him. But comedians, they point out the plot holes, and worse, they get laughs doing it. So when Jimmy Kimmel shredded him like expired Trump steaks, it wasn't just funny, it was existentially threatening. Because comedy doesn't just ridicule, it reveals Trump thrives on the illusion of dominance. The emperor has no clothes and Kimmel just gave him a wedgie. But here's where it gets deeper, because this isn't just viral popcorn entertainment. It's a snapshot of something bigger. Late-night comedy has become one of the last mainstream arenas where political absurdity gets called out with teeth. Journalists hedge and pundits equivocate. Comedians like Kimmel, Colbert, and Oliver drag ridiculous behavior into the light and throw glitter on it. They cut through spin with satire. And Trump, he knows that he doesn't just fear jokes. He fears truth wrapped in laughter. Because when you can make people laugh at someone, you strip them of control. And Trump's empire is built on being seen as the guy in control. That's why a comedian's ridicule hits harder than any congressional hearing ever could. Kimmel's not lobbying Congress. He's doing stand-up for the country's collective conscience. And Trump's comeback tour. Please, it's not a campaign. It's a never-ending open mic night at Mar-a-Lago's Tiki Bar. Every stop on the tour is just Trump riffing for 90 minutes about how he actually won. And Biden tripped again while his crowd yells, "Lock her up!" Like it's still 2016, and we're trapped in some Groundhog Day political sequel nobody asked for. He's not rallying voters. He's performing to an audience that just wants the nostalgia of when yelling "Build the Wall" felt edgy.